Honestly, when I saw this, I thought to myself, well, this is a fear. There's anxiety here. And also, huh? So let's talk about how to choose a therapist. I made a video talking about why people still aren't going to therapy, especially black people. And I got a really interesting response. So the response read as this: not with somebody like you. It might end up on TikTok or some SHIT emoji with a flat face, and then, of course, this emoji. Well, I knew there was a problem, wasn't quite sure what they meant, and then also, I didn't really make a video saying that I was a therapist, nor was I offering therapeutic services. So I was just talking about why some people might be afraid. Honestly, when I saw this, I thought to myself, well, this is a fear. There's anxiety here. And also, huh? So that's how I replied, huh? And this is what they responded with: oh, you must don't know. There are a lot of men, with me included, that don't really feel comfortable having therapy with a black therapist, especially black women. What we say ends up thrown out to the public, or we get disgraced for the things we share. And to be honest, I've heard other therapists that I know personally talk about clients outside their office, so I know it happens a lot. So they're kind of upset about that. So I want to talk about this, and I also want to talk about how to actually choose a therapist. First thing I want to say is that if you have any anxiety of working with someone of a particular demographic, then you shouldn't work with them. And you don't have to. Luckily, so many people are learning to be therapists, and so many people are good therapists, and the variety and range is there. And so that's something, the first thing you want to think about. And I responded in saying, like, first off, we have a lot of fears when it comes to getting therapy, and thank you for sharing yours. If you watch the original video, I actually talked about my fear of my first therapist, who actually happened to be a black woman, and I was uncomfortable working with them because I was concerned about colorism issues and if the person would actually support me. And there were times where I didn't feel that they did, so that I actually ended that relationship with them, and that's perfectly okay. I don't think it's wrong to be specific about what you want, because really this is about getting well immensely. If a woman traumatized you and she happened to be black or Latina or Caucasian, you probably don't want to go to a therapist that looks like or reminds you of that person who traumatized you. Now, someone else might want to do that to see if they can correct that damage that happened with someone who, of course, is better and of sound mind and of a good heart. But you have to do what works for you. If you've been traumatized by men, there's this strong possibility that you may not want to work with a male therapist, especially talking about certain topics. You prefer a woman. It really does depend, and that's perfectly okay. So, seeing this comment, it was just really interesting. I did respond to them like this: we have a lot of fears when it comes to getting therapy, and thank you for sharing yours. I enjoy following therapists of different racial and gender backgrounds on social media, and it isn't uncommon for them to share general information from their experiences, but I have never heard client-specific information that would violate HIPAA. I'm sorry if you've had that experience. If working with a black woman causes fear or anxiety, you should find a therapist that will work for you. Your mental health is the most important. Take care. They responded as such: it's not my experience, but I've seen it done. And I guess there is a woman that has gone viral on YouTube because she went to TikTok and YouTube talking bad about the people she gives therapy to. Well, guess what? I did come across that video, and I found out what he was talking about. And he's saying that, and I assume this is a male, he's saying it's not my experience. But I think that it is his experience, because it is traumatizing to see someone in that field with those credentials and saying that they have these credentials and speaking in a way that isn't pleasant, it isn't inviting, and it doesn't feel safe. And I did see it, and I understood exactly how someone might feel. That's not someone I would go to get therapy from. I'm very gentle. I need that person to be gentle. So here are a few ways that you can actually find a therapist that will work for you. One, get real about like what issues that you might want to cover. Are you feeling depressed? Do you think you might be depressed? Are you having anxiety about work, life, love? Are you noticing that you have had panic episodes? Are you knowing that you've had a lot of trauma in your past and it seems like you feel stuck? Well, once you can kind of have an idea of what you might think is going on, you can start researching treatments. So there's different kinds of treatments. The most common treatment that we typically know is like cognitive process therapy, but there's so many more treatments. So you can start researching different treatments like CPT, which is cognitive processing therapy, and then I meant to say cognitive behavioral therapy. That's the one that most of us know, which is typically when people think about talk therapy. But then there's EDMR. There are so many different kinds of therapies, and so different therapies will help you address what your issues are depending on what they are. Trauma has different therapies than maybe just anxiety or your everyday stress or even extreme stress. Um, so there's different ways to address different issues. So if you have an idea on what kind of therapy you may be interested in after your research, then through your insurance or through whatever form you're using, I've tried BetterHelp before. What you could do, what you can do, is then look for therapists that actually specialize in your issues. There's all kinds of therapists. So there are family therapists, there's PTSD therapists who work with veterans, who might work with survivors of abuse or molestation. There's therapists that work strictly with drugs. There's therapists that will work with people who maybe are Christian and they need that kind of support. So there's such a wide range of where you can go. There's really nothing stopping you other than you being willing to do the research. You see, saying all this stuff, all that other stuff about not going to a particular person really doesn't matter anymore, because we've opened up a really big door on all the possibilities that you can have when you are looking for a therapist that will work for you. So that is one approach that I think you should make. Do the research, and then of course look for your therapist that way. Another way is that you can determine what you think or who you think you'll be most comfortable with. There's a really fun thing that I read that a lot of people prefer to have a therapist. So heterosexual women and heterosexual men sometimes prefer a therapist who is gay and of the opposite gender. So women might prefer a gay male therapist, and even some men, and then men may prefer a gay woman therapist in different capacities, because they feel the most safe. I can tell you this right now. That's one of my preferences. So for me, the last time I was looking for a therapist, that was actually really important to me. I just wanted to feel safe and kind of not have to have a conversation with a woman who might have the same ideas. And I also didn't want to talk to a man who might be heterosexual. I just want someone kind of out of the game, out of my game, if you will. And I felt more comfortable that way. So there's nothing wrong with that. And so I would say, one, in this situation, to this person, you had a traumatic experience, and this one person should not color all therapists for you. But with that being said, if you truly don't feel comfortable with a black woman at this time, that's perfectly fair, because your mental health is the most important. And if you're concerned about someone violating HIPAA or getting on social media, realize you can always research all your therapists, and you can also research them on the internet. And honestly, there's so many good therapists out there, and they're not on the internet. Very few people would even know how to navigate that. And I also want to say this, that there are a lot of great therapists that are using social media to share their knowledge, and they handle things so well. This particular person is nothing like I've ever seen before, and I like to actually follow quite a few therapists online. And I will say this, the way that you want to look for a therapist that you might want to learn from before maybe you even go into therapy, you want to look for someone who's inviting, who's non judgmental, and who makes you feel safe to explore these different things, these different ideas, and these different feelings, because they do it in a way that's more about opening up your mind to ideas versus trying to accuse you or be accusatory or rough or harsh. It should be a gentle process. And if you are calling for that, which based off of what I'm seeing here says that, then you want to start studying those kinds of therapists. And that might open up your door to find someone just like that, right? Sometimes when you have more experience and more positive influences, you're more than likely to find someone exactly how you're looking because you know what you want. So I am sorry for everyone that did experience that traumatic experience with that particular therapist, but hopefully they've learned their lesson and they figured out how to stand up and abide by the codes that really dictate their practice. But that's not all therapists at all. It's really, to me, something I've never seen before. And the therapists that I've seen online have actually been really, really great. One of my favorite therapists is the guy who runs the YouTube channel Psychology in Seattle. So I would check him out if you really want a nice positive experience with a therapist that provides educational information, keeps things open, non-judgmental, and really advocates for your mental health more than anything. All right? Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Magic, Yo, and Bunya, and I will see you all on the next video.